Good morning and welcome to the Deep Dockets podcast, our newly rebranded Deep Dockets podcast. With me, as always, is Mr. Samuel Sanchez. Sam, how you doing?
Doing well, sir. Doing well.
The adios to my MFer,
The
Sam
cookies, the
Sanchez.
cookies to your cream, my friend. Cookies to your cream.
Okay, so we got a little scatter shooting today. I think we could talk about a couple of different topics. I like one we'll talk family, one we'll talk guns. Family and guns seems to be
Family
our
and guts, man. That's like a Texas. That's a family reunion at my place, man.
So, Sam, did you come down here to Houston and see the big Taylor Swift concert they had over the weekend?
I tried to get tickets, but I was outpriced, man. Luckily I've seen Tay Tay before. I have a daughter, so when she was in her teens, and Taylor was not quite as big as she is right now. We did get to see Taylor. She's good in concert. I'm sure it's changed
Gone to
somewhat.
see TT before. I did not go to this one. Apparently, everyone else in Houston did to three shows, and there was some late arrivals at the my daughter's schoolhouse yesterday morning. So
Well,
I got to tell
Taylor
you,
would do that for you.
my daughter draws these pictures, and she's only 7, so that gives you a little context. So she brings these pictures home. So she brings this picture home that says "I love you, Dad," and this one that says "I love you, Mom." Then she'll picture of her with Mom and her with Dad. So right on top of the pictures, she drew um, she drew our ages, what she thought our ages were. And so on Mom's, it's significantly younger than my wife is, and has Quinn 7, and the other child, the mom significantly younger than she actually is, and then it has Dad 60 and Quinn 7. So I'm 60 apparently.
She's
Well, 12,
overcalculated.
13 years older than I actually am. So apparently I'm looking old these days. So
It's always dads. We always get the punch in the gut, man. It's always, you're like, well, thanks, daughter. I love so much, but okay.
So it was good stuff. Good stuff. I was happy at least to get some shout outs. Usually it's just shout outs to Mom. So at
Oh
least
yeah.
at least I got a picture.
Oh my gosh. This takes me, that's a funny story because, I always think of like the Father's Day, Mother's Day scenario. And I know we're going to talk about some family stuff later on, but it's always like Mother's Day, it's like this huge deal, man. Everybody goes out and buys everything, flowers, cards, freaking everybody goes to dinner. Father's Day, you get like a freaking yard tool. You're like, hey, we know
There's a
you
new
really want.
shovel.
Yeah, here's a new shovel to go dig up that hole that we've been wanting for a while. Okay, thanks. So yeah,
That's true. That's true. Okay, so let's start out. So I read an article not too long ago about Visa and Mastercard putting codes into their um, platform or whatever, however they track purchases, so that they could track purchases at gun shops, which leads to a wider discussion of, should Visa and Mastercard be tracking what you purchase? Where does that lead? Um, they've since paused the decision to start categorizing gun purchases. But should Visa and Mastercard start categorizing what you're buying on a Visa card or what you're buying on a Mastercard? Because what comes after categorizing, they, they decline anything they don't want you to purchase. So
yeah.
should you have the freedom to purchase without being tracked?
Well, I mean, I think those days are past us, unfortunately. I think absolutely, the general consensus, you and I are both proponents of freedom, obviously, individual and personal liberty. And I think one of those things is being able to purchase, what you want, when you want, if you have the availability, so long as it isn't, nuclear materials or something.
Sure, something that's dangerous.
Yeah,
Dangerous.
inherently
I guess
dangerous,
people
right?
aren't going to guns are
Yeah.
dangerous.
The problem is that what we're having obviously a really rough years with mass shooting. I think that gun control has been at the forefront of a lot of political campaigns on both sides, and it's just become a very prolific issue that it's impossible for retailers not to be involved. Whether you're a gun dealer, whether you're a credit card company, those purchases are being tracked at every level. So if you think even beyond this, even if this was to say like, oh, MasterCard and Visa aren't going to track those purchases, if you think that the purchase isn't being tracked, you're delusional. Like everything is being tracked at this point. In the digital age, we're past the point of hell. They're tracking what we look at. if you think that they're not tracking what we purchase, give me a break. I mean, they know what you look at, how long you look at it.
I
If
can
you
tell
switch
when your
between
cell
pages,
phone
yeah,
went into a gun store. I mean,
yeah,
you know,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, they're pinging you on all these things. So, I find it, a little bit offensive that, this is something that they feel they should do. And I agree with you that, this is a slippery slope, in my opinion, to where you go and give somebody not only the authority to track it, but then potentially the authority to stop it. Which is a substantial problem, a big problem, and it's easy to get to. It's easy to get to,
unless we go
especially
to,
with regulations that they're talking about.
because if we go to digital currency, I mean, then they'll be able to stop purchases, right? If we have cash, I mean, it's just you're gonna go to the gun store, you're gonna walk up to the counter, you're gonna put your Glock down or whatever you're gonna buy, and then you're gonna pull out your credit card and they're gonna swipe it and say, nope, decline. Then you're gonna get pissed off and you're gonna walk out the door of the gun store, go down to the bank, withdraw the cash, and then go back and buy the gun. So it's not really necessarily stopping anything. And the majority of guns that are used in these, involved in crime are illegally obtained, whether that's illegally purchased, whether that's illegally stolen, whether that's, whatever. I mean, the vast majority of guns used in crime are not legal guns anyway. So who are you stopping? Legal purchasers?
Yeah.
And, we do have a Second Amendment. We have a Second Amendment for a reason. And I just don't, I think this is just another thing on the line of slippery slopes that, is just, making things harder for people to obtain is not necessarily taking things away from people, is not making the world safer, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And, even if you wanted to take it to the extreme and say, like, okay, well, this could, let's just put in the context of mass shooters, right? Like, people are saying, like, well, they're warning signs. So if these warning signs we were able to track these warning signs for potential mass shooters or individuals who are going to use them for an illicit purpose, then great, we could stop that type of purchase. But the problem is that if you look at historically, it's not like these people are buying them that day. Do you know what I'm saying? These are people who are like getting access to weapons substantially earlier than the events that they're planning and executing. So if you think that, to your point, stopping them at the point of purchase is going to prohibit them from accessing or obtaining a weapon, you're fooling yourself.
Planned weeks or months in advance. There's manifestos written. There's planned out strategies and stuff like that. They're not on a whim going and buying a gun at a gun store and then stopping at the school on the way home from the gun store.
Right. Yeah, they're taking them from their parents. They're taking them from their friends' houses. They're buying them on the street. They're just yeah, we're past that point. So I understand the newsworthiness of this, because I do feel like it does have the potential to infringe on individual liberties for law-abiding citizens. But the criminals, it's not going to do anything. It's just more fodder to kind of make it harder for regular, everyday, ordinary people to go get a gun.
I mean, and I think it's an exercise of, who do you want the diligence to be on? I mean, if you suspect your child has a gun, has a problem, a mental problem that could cause one of these. I mean, maybe it's on you to get some of these shootings are dealing with people that have had mental illness problems and should have been tracked. Somebody should have been paying attention. If you have a child or a friend or somebody that's just obtaining gun after gun after gun and then doing crazy things, that's somebody you have to keep an eye on. It's trying to absolve people of personal responsibility or responsibility to look after your neighbor, I guess, a little bit, and say put it on the onus of the credit card company or the credit card companies,
Yeah.
Well, and then pretty soon it's a slippery slope to whatever they want. Okay, they'll start tracking ammunition next. Okay, then they'll start tracking, if you want to buy knives or whatever.
Yeah, hell, man, it could be books. Oh, you know what? That's a banned book. So we don't want you to be able to purchase that book.
I worked at a hardware store when I was 18 years old, and we had the big rule you couldn't sell spray paint to kids because they were sniffing, huffing spray paint to get high. Yeah. Did that stop any kids from getting spray paint to huff? No, it didn't. Not at all. It didn't stop them at all. They'd either come in and try to steal it, or they would get somebody else to buy it for them, or or whatever, but they would, we had these restrictions in place to stop kids from buying, sniffing paint to get high, but it didn't do any good.
Oh, I mean, like if this were the kind of policy that was going to work to be a deterrent, I mean, then the meth policies, we wouldn't have methamphetamines, right? We wouldn't have that problem because people wouldn't be able to get those types of drugs to convert to meth. But guess what? Just because you have a policy that says keep it behind the counter and we're going to track who buys those doesn't mean that they've stopped making them. So like it's just, yeah, I agree with you. I think it's kind of one of those whole errands.
You should have a level of privacy in your purchases. Visa and MasterCard, in my opinion, they take enough interest from us, now. you really shouldn't be tracking what if you can legally purchase something, they shouldn't be tracking it.
Yeah, for 29% interest, I think you should be able to do whatever the hell you want to with your freaking card. It's just,
right. I mean, are they trying to be a good world citizen? We'll charge us less interest. I mean, be a good world citizen. Give us a break so we can buy food. Right?
Give us a kickback, man. Some cash kickback on the card would be great. That'd be freaking awesome. How about we do that?
Right. Yeah. If you're trying to be a good world citizen, help us survive.
Yeah.
Don't nail us to the wall on interest and then track all of our purchases. I mean, it's I don't know, it's ridiculous. I mean, they're able to track people very quickly. They're finding out that the majority of the mass crimes, everybody talks about the mass shootings as the big crime, but there's more gun crime than just mass shootings. And the majority of those guns are obtained illegally. And, I do think the gun crime statistics are a little skewed given the fact that they include suicide in there as part of a gun crime, in the statistics. So I don't think that's typically that, it's not necessarily a fair statistics, but like I said, I mean, majority of the people that do these crimes are not going to get the gun in a legal manner. They're going to get the gun illegally. They're stealing it. They're getting somebody else to buy it for them, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
All right. Well, I think we killed that one. Let's move on to the next topic.
I don't think we like that.
That's completely related to the topic of guns and guns and gun purchases. Summer visitation. So
yeah, it could be. That's for sure.
Family and summer visitation, because April's a big month in Texas for, if you're going to designate summertime for the non-custodial parent, they have the right to designate your time in April, typically, and designate your 30 days in the summer. And let's talk about the summer visitation, because that is a massive rub for people because of that 30 days, that month-long 30 days in the summer that people get under the standard possession order, which the majority of people in Texas have the standard possession order. So the non-primary parent loses that kiddo for 30 days. They get a weekend in there, but yeah, basically 30 days. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big piece of it is obviously this is governed by statute in the state of Texas for most individuals. Most people who go through a divorce and get an order have what's called the standard possession schedule. That standard possession schedule encompasses in it a summer period of possession. And in that, there's 2 periods of designation. So as a primary parent, right, the parent who has the majority of time, you're usually going to give the other parent the opportunity to give you notice that says, hey, I want my time in the summer, because they're getting the first, third, and fifth weekend of every month, and then typically 30 days in the summer under this statute, this codified possession schedule that Texas has. So they have to
for just a second. There's a period for notice and a period for if you don't give notice, correct?
Correct. So if you give notice by April 1st, so the person who wants summer possession, who's the non-primary parent, they by April 1st are just supposed to tell you, hey, in 7-day blocks, no smaller than 7-day blocks, and usually no shorter than 2 periods, I want these days in the summer. They can send it to you in writing, as it depends on what your decrease is, but typically it's going to be in writing, an email. Sometimes text messages will work, but sometimes they're going to provide you this notice that says, these are the time periods that I want in the summer. And so long as they don't conflict, like let's say you're the father and it doesn't affect your holiday schedule, which would include Father's Day, typically. Now, some possession schedules are very creative and they'll include like holiday schedules as well beside that, like 4th of July, but if it doesn't encompass any of that, then as long as it doesn't, infringe on or encroach on Father's Day or Mother's Day, they can pick their periods. There are 2 periods, at least 7 days long during the summer for 30 days. Well, but then by the 15th, the other parent, the parent who has the primary possession more time during the summers, it's not the weekend parent, then they get to say, okay, well, you've picked your periods. And if you didn't pick them by April 1st, then you're going to get a 30-day block, July 1st to July 31st. That's your summer period of possession if you don't submit notice in Texas by April 1st. Well, then knowing that block of time, the other parent could say, I don't want to miss my child for 30 days. I don't want to not get to see them for that block of time. So then typically under the possession schedule, you'll get the opportunity to select a weekend or 2, depending on how it's broken up. If you're over 100 miles, it's 42 days instead of 30 days. So depending on the length of that summer period of possession, whether it's the default or whether you elected it in big blocks, the other parent will get to choose weekends in that time period to kind of break it up, right? So like it's not giving somebody the opportunity to just say, hey, for a whole month, they're going to disappear down a well and you're not going to see or hear from them. And so these 2 periods of notice, whether you give it or you don't, what you get and what you don't get, are very important. And most parents who go through a divorce really don't understand how that notice works. And that becomes a huge source of frustration for parents, because what ends up happening is April 1st comes around really fast, right? It's right after spring break typically. And so if you haven't got it on your calendar, you don't plan it out, you didn't, really think about kind of what you're looking for, most people start planning summer vacations in May. Most people are sitting down going like, if it's not big trips, they're like, hey, why don't we take a couple of weeks in July? Well, if you didn't submit it by April 1st, then it's got to be within your block of time. Well, it just so happens that July is what? July is like the heaviest period to travel, most expensive time to travel in the summer, typically, anywhere you go. And so it becomes this huge source of frustration. Yeah, exactly.
It's probably still expensive to go to Antarctica.
Yeah, exactly. And so, these are the things that really become sources of frustration between parents, because then you want to reach and you call out the other parent and say, hey, can you make an exception? Well, if you're great co-parents, right? If you're adults and you use common sense, you're like, sure, no big deal. But guess what? You probably hate that other person. You just went through a divorce. They don't want to give you shit. The last thing they want to do is concede anything to you. And so what do they tell you?
They don't want to give you the 30 days in the first place.
Yeah, they're like, no, I don't want to freaking give you that. I didn't want to give you 30 days in a block. I didn't want to give you 2 days in a block. And so I'm not going to make any concession. Yeah.
Over the years you've been practicing law, how many times have you litigated the 30 days because one parent doesn't want the kid to go over there for 30 days? Well,
oh my gosh,
you know what they're doing. They won't know this. They don't do that. They're not going to get away from home for 30 days.
Well, not only that, but think about it. Like
orders abound in the month of June to stop some litigation.
Exactly. And when this possession schedule was codified in the state of Texas, okay, this was back in the freaking 70s. I believe it was like 76 or something like that they started working on this type of a possession schedule. Well, back in that time, people took summer breaks, right? There were more like stay-at-home moms. That made sense. Nowadays, both parents are working, and not working like, only to the summer. They're not teachers. They're freaking working all the year. And so to take 30 days in a block of time is a practical impossibility. Most people at most get 2 weeks, and they can't take them all the way during the summer because you want some time during the holidays. So what ends up happening? Yeah, exactly.
Silver lining for the custodial parent, though. I mean, there is a silver lining, and there's number one, the financial. They still get child support during that month, even though they don't have the kiddo. 1, 2, they get to designate a weekend outside of the summer possession that would effectively give them almost 21 days of time so that they get the child exclusively for 21 days. So
yeah, they do try to balance it, but I mean, the bigger problem is I think is nobody can really utilize that time, or very few people can really utilize that time. So what ends up happening is parents have to work together, or they have to figure out what we're going to do with the child while I'm still working. If I go to the office, I mean, obviously, post-COVID, a lot of people are working from home, but a lot of people are back in the office. So if you're back in the office and hey, I've got my kid for 30 days, but I don't typically have my child for 30 days. What does that mean? Well, that means you don't have daycare. You don't have all the things that you typically have to have a year contract to do. Now, businesses have kind of just, tried to gear up for summer to make,
more accommodating.
Yeah, more accommodating for this situation, because it's become more and more prevalent across, society, not just in Texas, but it's an extreme challenge. And so what I would just really encourage people to do is, one, read your freaking decree. Like, read those terms. If you don't understand them, talk to your lawyer about them so that you can plan it out. The second thing is that you need to ask your lawyer when you're getting divorced about a possession schedule, because a lot of times they can create a calendar for you. We have all these cool new little apps and mechanisms where we can generate a possession calendar for you. And on your calendar, it would say, hell, freaking enter it in your phone as a, to-do list, or a freaking task that says, hey, by March 28th, I'm going to submit to my new ex-wife or ex-husband my periods of possession that I want through the summer, or by the 13th.
The other thing I would say is also talk to your lawyer on the front side of this, because I don't know how many decrees, at least 100 that I've done in the last couple of years, that we've negotiated around the summer possession. We've split up the time, 2 weeks, 2 weeks. We've done a number of different things where people do 50-50 in the summer. They do different things because the kids are out of school. They are going to camps a lot of the time. They are going to do different things. So this is a time whenever the parents can negotiate, time where you don't have to go 30 days without seeing your kiddo, but you want to block aside enough time where if you want to take that kiddo on a vacation or take them to grandma and grandpa's house or whatever, you can do that, or have them spend time with your side of the family, you can do that. So I've had any number of different types of, one person gets 2 weeks in June, 2 weeks in July, 2 weeks in, 1 week in June, July, and August. I've had all kinds of different approaches for people to work out. And this was all done on the front side before the final decree was done. I mean, the standard possession is for people that aren't, that aren't really thinking, I guess. But the thing kind of sneaks up on you, and then you realize, oh crap, my kid's gone for a month. So, and nobody likes it. Nobody wants to do it. It's where the non-custodial parent makes up their time for not having the child as much during the school year. So that's where the bulk of the time is made up. But it is a very negotiable thing, and most people will negotiate it, because on the flip side, like I said, is the 21 days that the other parent won't get to see the child. So there is incentive for both sides to work together to come up with some kind of a mutually agreeable arrangement that works for everybody.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge point that you make there, Bryan, which is that, every order, what we're talking about when we talk about this standard possession schedule, it's the default, it's the worst, I think. It's the worst. And so when you look at it and you say, well, what does that mean? The law is uncreative, right? The law is in a position to where it says, I don't want to craft or create anything that's specific to you and your family. This is the generic. It's worse than shopping off the rack. And I know Christy is probably telling you, like, we never shop off the rack. Those sizes don't fit. It's like
Visa and MasterCard and their percentages, we have to shop off the rack. So.
Very well, so I mean, I really feel like that's what the state tried to do. They tried to say, look, if you can't work it out, if you're going to be morons, if you really don't want to think about what fits your lives best and reach an accord that's customized, because your lawyers will do that for you, then fine. Here's your worst case scenario. And it's going to not fit, and it's going to be terrible, and you're not going to like it. It's going to be itchy and scratchy and too tight around your neck, and it's going to make you look funny. But by God, you're going to have a shirt on because you can't figure it out for your kids, so we're going to figure it out for you, which is a terrible position to be in. So to your point, Bryan, it's absolutely the right thing to do, is to talk to your lawyer. And if you can work it out, do custom possession schedules. Do something that fits your life, your ex's life, your children's life. You'll never even have to look at the freaking order. It's so good. And a lot of people say, like, we'll tell people, hey, we can create something custom. And they're like, we don't even care what it says, because we're not going to follow it. We're going to do whatever we're going to do because it's whatever works for our family is what we're going to do. That's fine. You can do that. But the cautionary tale behind that is, if you can't agree, the order will control. The order will control. And so if you think, hey, man, well, we're on like the best terms and like we're going to be great co-parents until she finds a boyfriend that you freaking hate and he hates you. And so she's, and he's in her ear the entire time telling her, like, hey, why do you give him that much time? He's an asshole. You don't need to give him that time. That time's your time. We need to have it. That jackass doesn't need. And then all of a sudden you're like, what the hell? Because she's like, we're going to follow the order. And you're like, well, we've never followed it.
Human nature is the new spouse always has a chip on their shoulder from the ex.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. And so I would just tell you,
Large
like,
chip or a very small one, but there's always
yeah,
a chip.
they're always there. They're always there. So exactly. So, do yourself a favor, do your family a favor, your children a favor. Just craft something that is creative and applicable to your family's lifestyle and the situation. And that way, so you never look at it, you never use it, fantastic. But ever becomes an issue, you've got something that's hardcore
And I'm
and
here to
fast
tell you
that's
that
going to be
most
enforceable.
judges, if you go down to modify a possession schedule because you don't like the summer possession or like the fact that you don't like the 30 days, most judges can say too bad, so sad. That's what the legislature says I have to do, so that's what I'm going to do. You better have a darn good reason to go into court um, to modify that summer possession schedule. And um, if you've got the schedule, you're going to have to come up with something different. Well, my child doesn't like it. You're going to have some proof. You're going to have some kind of evidence that it's detrimental to the child, because absent that, the court is not going to entertain your notions of wanting to get rid of a 30-day possession schedule, because they're going to look at it from the standpoint of, well, hey, you agreed to this on the front side, and B, you know, you said this was best for your children on the front side. Now you're saying it's not. I realize that children are changing and things happen, but unless you can prove it, I'm not going to change it, because a lot, and oftentimes it's dad needs his time, or the other parent needs their time, and this is their time to do it, this is their time to take and do whatever they want with the kiddo. And it's a thing that sticks in a lot of people's craws. And like I said, if you're going to go to court and modify that, it's not easy to just file a modification and ask a judge to change it. You've got to have something.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, without a doubt.
So the cautionary tale is to make sure, if you're going to go into it, you're going to probably need a child psychologist, some kind of counselor, somebody to say how it's detrimental, not just you getting up in front of the judge and say, well, he cries every night before he goes to bed, or she cries every night before she goes to bed. She calls me and tells me she misses me, whatever the case may be. That's unfortunately not going to be enough. And nobody's, and all this is coming from the place of, you love your children. I get that. But so the other parent loves the children too. And unfortunately, this is the nuts and bolts of getting a divorce, and this is where it gets tricky, is in the summertime.
Yeah, I mean, so like, so absolutely read your order, know what it is, get your notice in, get it in early, plan it out. I know it's a pain in the ass, but at least do your designations if that's the order that you have and you can't work it out. And even if you can work it out, I mean, it's just good, it's good form, right? I mean, co-parenting works a lot better where people can kind of plan their lives, because you're right, summer comes up on you fast. And next thing you know it, everybody wants the same damn weekend. It's
Right.
everybody's like, well,
Yep,
that's the
yep,
kid's
concept.
birthday. Or, hey, that's always, you always get the 4th of July. I
It's
want
the
the
Taylor
4th of
Swift
July.
concert coming to town.
Freaking submit your shit early. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't, it's so frustrating sometimes. And I know as lawyers, we get jaded, right? Because like we hear this all the time. So, in advance, I'm going to apologize to our clients who come to us and we're like, for real, you want me to litigate this? I will. I'll spend your money however you want me to spend your money if it's reasonable. But in this situation, a lot of times what we have to tell people is we have to give them a very difficult, hard message, which is, you fucked up. You sat there and wasted time and didn't do what you were supposed to do as parent. And now we have to go in and try to convince a judge who's grumpy and pissed off all the time because he has to listen to this 1,000 times and doesn't like it any of those times, to try to convince him that what you did, even though it was, unintentional, intentional, that you didn't do what you're supposed to do, but we need to fix it because, the other side won't agree. It's just, it puts you in a very difficult position if you're going to have to go to court and fight about it. So just try to avoid it. I mean, just do what
I
you
had a
need to
case
do.
one time where I was representing a dad, and the mom came in 3 summers in a row, and you could set your watch by it. She came in 3 summers in a row, would file a modification about the end of May to try to stop summer visitation, whether that was through a temporary order. The first 2 times it was through a temporary order, and she got turned down every time. She had no basis for the suit, but she did it every year because she didn't want those kids going over to this evil ogre dad's house, even though he wasn't really doing anything. And she just thought it better that she'd have the kids all summer, and she'd try to put a stop to emergency orders, all kinds of stuff every year for 3 years. And finally, the judge threw her out and made her pay, and that was that. But she stopped after that. But it was a major inconvenience. We were litigating in June before July, and,
Yeah.
trying to get a court hearing before July, if you're filing in late May, but like clockwork, every year she'd come in there and file a modification trying to shut down summer visitation, and miraculously the suits would drop in August, August and September. She didn't want to fight it.
Yeah.
Um, it's bad for kids. It really is. I mean, kids do need that time with the other parent. It's not a great, I don't necessarily think that it's necessarily all that great. I mean, I'm much more in favor of kind of a 50-50 thing during the summer and stuff like that. I mean, that's, if I had my druthers, it would be that, but that is what it is right now. So unless you negotiate something different, that's what you're going to be stuck with. So,
yep. Agreed. Yeah. Don't do it. Be smart. Do what you need to.
Plan this stuff out, because, you don't know how you're going to get along with that ex. You don't know, what life's going to be like after the divorce. So try to do a little bit of introspection and understand what you're signing up for when you sign up for a long periods of summer possession. And then I've also had cases where this client wanted me to go in and litigate that he had to send these kids to this summer camp during his possession. These kids have to go to this summer camp. So you have to make sure that this is, we get a court order that says they have to attend the summer camp. Well, the judge says no. I mean, this is his time. If he chooses to send them to this summer camp, then that's great. The kids will probably benefit by it. But, if he doesn't, then that's his thing too. So those are the kinds of things that you really, really, really need to contemplate on the front side.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, divorce sucks. We all know it. Possession schedules suck. So make it suck less by spending a little bit of time and energy in either doing what you need to do under the terms of the order, or better yet, crafting something that makes it work for your family way better than what the legislature created.
If you could, I realize some exes are crazy, but try to do the best you can to co-parent with your significant ex, because, you are going to have to, there is going to come a time when you're going to have to get something out of them. You're going to want to go to the Taylor Swift concert, take your daughter, and it's going to be on the wrong weekend or the wrong week. And, you're going to need that favor, and you're going to need to trade days. So my cautionary tale is try to work with this person, take the high road as best you can, and then try to look at this stuff on the front side, because it does sneak up on you if you don't.
Yes, sir. That is very valuable advice. Hopefully somebody's listening and takes it to heart.
All right. So if you want to get in touch with us, we are at www.aswlawoffice.com. That's where Sam is. That's where I am. Sam, you got a local number they can call you at?
Sure. You can reach me at 449-844-7181. You can reach me directly at 817-914-5470.
281-374-4741. You can get me. And we also have, you can reach out to us via the website. I'm liking our new brand on the podcast. I think it's going to go well. We're going to have some interesting guests coming up. We're going to have some more interesting topics. I think we're going to try to take this thing to the next level. So that's the plan going forward, is to try to bring you some more entertaining content, but and also give you some stuff that hopefully you can use. I mean, it's not just one thing that we get on here and yuck it up and tell jokes, and my jokes are crappy, and everyone will just kind of groan and not really listen to it. But I want to try to give you guys when Sam and I talked about doing this, we wanted to give you some content that you can actually use, and or at least some stuff to think about. I mean, that's the whole idea here. Yeah. So that's what we're doing. That's what we're focusing on going forward, and we'll see how it goes.
Come along for the ride. It'll be good.
All right, brother. Well, thank you for the time today, and we will talk soon.
Sounds good. See you later.
Thanks for listening to the Deep Dockets podcast, brought to you by Abercrombie, Sanchez, and Wood. You can find us at aswlawoffice.com, slide into our DMs, or go old school and give us a ring at 888-981-7509. This podcast is for informational purposes only, and all views are the opinions of the hosts. It's not designed to provide legal advice for your particular legal matter and should not replace the advice of competent counsel. So tune in next time, because with over 40 plus years combined experience, these dockets go deep.